I cannot believe how common this actually is. Researchers describe it as a staircase, not a single moment. Coercive control rarely arrives all at once. Researchers describe it as a staircase. One small boundary crossed, normalized, then a slightly bigger one. Each step alone looks minor. It's only when you look back at the whole staircase that the pattern becomes obvious. And that's the part that gets me every time. Save this. Follow Dark Mind daily. They count on you never noticing this. Watch how differently they treat you when other people are around. They perform kindness in public that they never practice in private. Watch how differently they treat you when other people are around. In front of friends, family, co-workers, they are attentive, affectionate, generous with compliments. The second the audience leaves, so does the performance. This gap between public and private behavior is one of the clearest signals there is, because genuine character does not require witnesses to exist. Rewatch the first 3 seconds. You'll catch it. Most people fall for this at least once in their life. Number 4 is disguised as a joke almost every single time. Passive aggression is anger wearing a polite mask, and it shows up in patterns. 1. The silent treatment framed as just needing space. 2. Backhanded compliments that leave a small sting behind. 3. Deliberately forgetting things that matter to you specifically. 4. Sarcastic jokes that carry a real complaint underneath. 5. Agreeing out loud while doing the opposite the moment you look away. Save this. Follow Dark Mind daily. This tactic has a name, and once you learn it, you will see it everywhere. In the middle of an intense conflict, your brain physically cannot process information normally. In the middle of an intense conflict, your brain physically cannot process information normally. When emotional flooding hits, your heart rate spikes, your prefrontal cortex goes offline, and you lose access to reason, memory, and language. This is why you forget your best points, say things you do not mean, or freeze entirely. Skilled manipulators know this. They escalate conversations specifically to get you to this state because a flooded person cannot defend themselves effectively. The best strategy is not to win while flooded. It is to recognize it and say you need 20 minutes. That is not retreat. That is knowing how your own brain works. And that's the part that gets me every time. Rewatch the first 3 seconds. You'll catch it. I cannot believe how common this actually is. Suddenly mutual friends were checking in, asking questions, reporting back. Suddenly mutual friends were checking in, asking questions that felt oddly specific. And somehow whatever you said seemed to make its way back. These are called flying monkeys, people who are recruited, knowingly or not, to do the manipulator's work for them. They gather information, they relay messages, they apply pressure. Sometimes they genuinely believe they are helping. They have been given a version of events that makes them sympathetic to the wrong person. Recognizing it is not about blaming them. It is about understanding that the manipulation extended further than you thought, and adjusting who you speak openly to. Most people never even realize it's happening to them. Send this to someone who does this. This tactic has a name, and once you learn it, you will see it everywhere. If they're rushing you, be suspicious. Manufactured urgency is one of the oldest manipulation tools. Act now, this offer ends tonight. If you really loved me, you would decide right now. Pressure and time limits are designed to shut down your rational brain, because a rushed mind makes emotional decisions and skips the questions it should ask. Scammers, salespeople, and manipulators all rely on it. Most people never even realize it's happening to them. Tag someone who needs to see this. This is the pattern therapists warn people about. Saying just kidding after something cruel does not undo the cruel part. Saying just kidding after something cruel does not undo the cruel part. Dark humor used to demean, embarrass, or test limits is a common tactic. It allows someone to say something harmful and then position your reaction as the problem. If you laugh, they learn it is acceptable. If you do not, you are told you cannot take a joke. Either way, they win. Over time, the jokes reveal exactly how they see you and what they feel safe saying. Pay attention to what someone thinks is funny at your expense. The content of a joke tells you more about the person telling it than they realize. Tag someone who needs to see this. This is the pattern therapists warn people about. It has a name, and once you learn it, the confusion finally makes sense. Researchers call it the fog effect. It happens when someone keeps you so confused about what's real that you stop trusting your own judgment entirely. You're not imagining the fog. Studies on coercive control describe this exact pattern, and once you know the name, you start noticing it everywhere. Watch the first line again. It explains everything. This is the pattern therapists warn people about. The vacation they kept mentioning, the plans they kept making, none of it was ever real. the vacation they kept mentioning, the house they talked about, the future they painted so clearly you could almost see it. None of it was ever real. Future faking is when someone uses promises to keep you invested without ever intending to follow through. It is not forgetfulness. It is strategy. The promises come when you start pulling away. They get specific enough to feel believable. And then something always comes up. Over time you stop questioning it because you do not want to lose the dream. That is exactly where they want you. And that's the part that gets me every time. Send this to someone who does this. This is exactly what they do to you, and it works every time. Number 4 is what gives most people away. Emotionally strong people understand that some things lose their power the moment you reveal them. Here are 6 things they keep to themselves. 1. Their next move. They let their actions speak after the fact, never announcing plans that others could doubt, copy, or sabotage. 2. How much something hurt them. Save this. Follow Dark Mind daily. Manipulators use this so quietly you barely notice it happening. Confusion keeps you asking questions instead of making decisions. They need you confused more than they need you convinced. Confusion keeps you asking questions instead of making decisions. A confused person does not leave, does not confront, does not act, they just keep trying to understand, endlessly, which is exactly the point. Clarity is the enemy of control, so the goal was never to win the argument. It was to make sure you never got clear enough to realize there was an argument worth winning in the first place. And that's the part that gets me every time. Watch the first line again. It explains everything. They count on you never noticing this. Number 4 always gets excused as just being tired. The biggest red flags rarely look dramatic at first. They look small. 1. They test your boundaries with jokes to see how much you will let slide. 2. They get irritated by your independence disguised as concern for you. 3. They remember every favor they did but forget everyone you did. 4. They explain away cruelty as just being honest. 5. Your friends notice something is off before you do, and you defend them anyway. That's what makes it so hard to spot in the moment. Tag someone who needs to see this. This one explains a relationship you thought you understood. Number 2 is why con artists are so hard to spot. Trust can be engineered faster than most people realize, using 3 consistent techniques. 1. Shared vulnerability, revealing something personal early to fast-track intimacy. 2. Assumed familiarity, acting like you already know each other well, which triggers your brain to fill the gap with trust. 3. Consistent small promises kept, building a track record quickly on low-stakes actions before asking for something bigger, which is exactly why it works so well. Go back and watch how this started. Most people fall for this at least once in their life. Affection became something that had to be deserved after every disagreement. Affection became something that had to be deserved after every disagreement. A conflict would happen and suddenly warmth was gone. Physical distance. One-word answers. A coldness that only lifted when you had demonstrated enough remorse or compliance. This is love withdrawal as a control mechanism. It trains you to associate disagreement with the loss of something you need. Over time you stop bringing up problems because the cost of doing so feels too high. You learn to manage yourself around their moods. You become smaller to maintain the peace, and smaller again, until one day you realize you are not really in a relationship. You are in an audition that never ends. And that's the part that gets me every time. Send this to someone who does this. I cannot believe how common this actually is. Intelligence does not protect you from this, and researchers know exactly why. Social psychologists have studied the foot-in-the-door technique since the 1960s. A small request makes a bigger one feel reasonable by comparison. It works on smart, skeptical people just as well as anyone else, because it targets consistency bias, not intelligence. Watch the first line again. It explains everything. This one explains a relationship you thought you understood. Number 4 is the hardest one to admit is happening to you. Some people drain you by accident, others do it with intention, and there are signs. 1. Every conversation somehow becomes about their problems. 2. They only reach out when they need something. 3. You feel exhausted after seeing them but cannot explain why. 4. They subtly compete with your good news instead of celebrating it. 5. You find yourself rehearsing conversations with them before they even happen, which is exactly why it works so well. Rewatch the first 3 seconds. You'll catch it. This one explains a relationship you thought you understood. Number 2 is the one that makes you feel crazy afterward. Manipulators do not argue to resolve anything, they argue to win, and there is a pattern. 1. They shift the topic the second they start losing. 2. They rewrite what you said mid-conversation until you are defending words you never used. 3. They bring up something from months ago to distract from right now. 4. They end it by making themselves the victim of the exact thing they just did to you. Once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. Tag someone who needs to see this. This one explains a relationship you thought you understood. The things they accused you of were almost always the things they were doing. The things they accused you of were almost always the things they were doing. You were accused of lying by someone who was lying. Called controlling by someone who was monitoring your every move. Told you were the selfish one by someone who had never once genuinely considered your needs. This is called projection. It is the psychological act of placing your own unacceptable traits onto someone else. For some people, it is unconscious. For others, it is tactical. Either way, the pattern is consistent enough that once you notice it, the accusations start to read like a confession. Whatever they are pointing at loudest is worth examining in them first. Watch the first line again. It explains everything. This one is disturbing, but you need to see it. The same principle that makes slot machines addictive shows up in toxic relationships. Behavioral psychologists call it intermittent reinforcement. Unpredictable reward is more addictive than constant reward, which is exactly why slot machines work. When someone alternates cruelty with sudden warmth, your brain chases the good moments harder than it would if things were simply good all the time. Tag someone who needs to see this. Manipulators use this so quietly you barely notice it happening. Notice the difference next time. It changes everything. They apologize for how you feel, never for what they did. Notice the difference next time. It changes everything. I am sorry you feel that way is not an apology. It is a redirection. It moves the problem from their behavior to your reaction, as if your hurt is the malfunction and their actions were simply normal. A real apology names the action and the harm without conditions. If every apology you have ever received from someone starts with sorry you feel, you have never actually been apologized to. You have been managed. Save this. Follow Dark Mind daily.